Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. And as I'm looking through my stuff to take to the National to kind of organize myself and see what I'm going to take and what I'm going to try to get at the National, I saw a card that I wanted at an auction, at Golden Auction. So I ended up buying that card. I'm going to show you that card at the end. Because of that, I got to find some more stuff to sell. So I'm selling a lot of, when I went to Atlantic City, I sold a lot of my my modern cards there, and those that's been following me since the beginning knows I had modern cards. I opened packs. I mean, when everybody did that when it first started in COVID, and I put together a couple of the newer sets. But for the most part, I did buy some raw cards that I got graded, and I tried to pick up some good deals, and and along the way, I had picked up a which I sold. I had a Acuna, a red auto. It was a 1 of 10, number 1 of 10, red auto Acuna, which I ended up selling in Atlantic City. I also sold a bunch, pretty much all my modern stuff. I had a Guerrero, a Vladimir Guerrero Jr., green autograph to 10, and I ended up selling that also at the Golden Auction House. I left that off there, and but I still have some more stuff, and some of the modern stuff. I decided I'm going to go ahead and take this again. I took this last year, I didn't sell it. I'm looking maybe to trade it at trade night. It's a Paul Goldschmidt 101 black finite prism, whatever they call these things. I don't know. It's a really shiny thing. It's really cool. 101. It's a nicknames, Paul Goldschmidt, and I didn't sell this. He's a Hall of Famer for sure, so I figured maybe this guy could be worth a little bit more in the future. But it is that black, whatever they call that black 101 nicknames card from 2019 Donruss. Here's the back of it. So any interest in that, that's going to be going to the National to sell, or I'll leave it at an auction house or something. I'll figure it out. Probably for trade night. Here's another one, number 5. There's Christian Yelich. 3 of 5, beautiful swatches there, game used, memorabilia with his autograph. Ex-Marlin, collected a few of his, traded most of them, sold most of them, except for this of 5. So that's gonna end up going. And the other one that I looked at here, and I have a few others. I have a Freddie Freeman to 5. I'm not gonna sell that one. I'm gonna hold on to Freddie because Freddie Freeman's gonna be a lot bigger and better still. But I had this thing here, also the 5, 2019 museum collection, and it's got a couple of great players. Chris Sale, I was hoping he'd do a little bit better. He got off to a great start, but he's gone down. So I'm gonna try to move this on a trade, and David Price, got some pretty good patches on their game used, and it's a museum collection to 5. So these 3 are few of the modern stuff that I'm going to be taking to trade for vintage, and nice vintage. Instead of looking at, these are to 5s, I'm going to show you the card that I picked up, which I'm not going to show you to right now. I'm going to make you hold on to that, but the one that I picked up is it's a pop 5 in the PSA registry. There's only 5, and there's only one higher. So I'll show you that one later. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit about, and it's Armando Marsans, and that's who I want to talk about today. And I've talked about him, and so I want to show you my latest pickup of Armando Marsans. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about Armando Marsans, because nobody really knows, not many people really know about him. And this article, published in Saber, says, blurring the color line, how Cuban baseball players led to the racial integration of the major leagues. And it talks about Rafael Almeida and Armando Marsans, who played for Cincinnati Reds 36 years before Jackie Robinson came along. They should be credited with crashing the color barrier, is what this article goes ahead and talks about that. And it talks about Jackie, and the first black player really was William White, who played in 1879. But this article really talks a lot about Cuban baseball. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit. And it's a long article. I mean, it really is a long article. It talks all about, and I'll put a link to it, but it talks about baseball in Cuba. And it goes on to talk a little bit about how it was brought into Cuba. And baseball in Cuba started in the 1860s. And the first official game between two Cuban teams was in 1874. So the Cuban League and America, United States, have very similar history with the sport, and it being such a, the sport of the country. And it's been around for, over 150 years now, both in the United States and in Cuba. But what I want to show you is that the difference between the history of Cuba and the history of the United States. And it says, during the Wars of Independence, the ideas of interracial cooperation and acceptance became battle standards for all who believed in freedom for Cuba. So it talks about that the Cuban people, they all fought together. There was really no racism there. It says Jose Marti, one of the founding fathers of Cuba, wrote in a newspaper, Patria, which is a newspaper of the homeland there, says, men are more than white, more than mulatto. Mulatto is the mix, which generally the Cubans are a mix of some Negro blood, black blood, plus colonial Spanish blood. And that's why the Cubans and Latins are, kind of like tanned. Let's call it, we're tanned. Mulatto is the name of it. So Jose Marti, which is really like the George Washington of Cuba, he wrote, men are more than white, more than mulatto, from a mixture of colonial Spanish blood. It says, more than Negro. It says, on the battlefields of Cuba, white and black have died and their souls risen together to heaven, Jose Marti wrote in My Race and the Patria. He also wrote about how dividing men by race was a sin against humanity. And this rings true in Cuban culture as well. Cuba is an independent nation that has never had legal slavery. And Cuban baseball has always included whites, blacks, and mulattoes playing side by side. So that's what Jose Marti said. He said that on the battlefields of Cuba, white and black have died and their souls risen together to heaven. He also wrote about how dividing men by race was a sin against humanity. And that was Jose Marti, really the founding father of Cuba. And he was part black. You could see his hair. Here is Jose Marti. He had kind of kinky hair, but he was a light-colored, mulatto, they would call. Not white, not black, mulatto. So this is his 1915 Susini, the Jose Marti Susini from 1915 from the album Universal album. And he was the one that freed Cuba and, wouldn't tolerate any slavery or anything like that. So moving on from a little quick history of Cuba, let's move on to Armando Marsans and how it goes on and talks about, this article talks about Armando Marsans. And what it basically says that in 1908, see if I can find the exact wording on it, but in 1908, here it is. It says in 1908, Cincinnati Reds went to play in Cuba, and it says as far as determining the first Cuban major leaguers, it says that there was another major leaguer that played in the 1800s, Esteban Bayon, and supposedly one of the ones that was the fathers of baseball back then. But it says Marsans and Almeida are the first Cuban players to be signed by a major league club. And they were signed because they were light Cubans. They were mulatto Cubans. And when they went to see them play, the Reds went to see them play, here's Marsans' rookie card in 1909. In the 1909 Cabanas. So when the Cincinnati Reds went to play in 1908, they played against the Cuban teams. And the Cuban team had 3 stars on that team: Rafael Almeida, Armando Marsans, and Jose Mendez. Now, during that game, Marsans scored the game's only run, and in fact, had already turned down one offer to play professionally in the United States the year before. So the Reds, unfortunately, they couldn't take Mendez because Mendez was black, and Mendez was a pitcher, and Mendez shut out the Reds. In fact, in the 1908 season, from his first pitch against Cincinnati to a series against a team from Key West, and ending with a game against Havana, Mendez racked up 45 straight scoreless innings. Mendez pitching was standout performance of the day when they played out there, and all 3 players had the talent to play with any major league team, but one difference made Almeida and Marsans more signable than Mendez, and because Almeida and Marsans descended from European families, which meant their skin color was lighter and indeed almost white. So they were the ones that were actually signed in 1912 by the Cincinnati Reds. So Armando Marsans, and this is his rookie card from the 1909 Cabanas, and these are very, very rare cards. And just like I talked about, you know, the population of some of these guys here of 5, there's less than 5 of these cards known and known to exist at this point. There's about 4 or 5 out there of Armando Marsans in the PSA registry, and a couple more in the SGC. So, but definitely less than 10. And these came in cigarette packs, and you can see the Cabañas cigarettes, and they're smaller than the actual T206s. So, 1909. He played with the Almendar's club, and then he played with, he came to the United States and was signed with the Reds. And in 1912, Armando Marsans started playing with the Cincinnati Reds team. And this is his 1912 recruit, Little Cigars. It's a T207, what's called the brown background cards, what technically a lot of people call them. Brown background, brown border, T207s. So this one is Armando Marsans when he was first signed with Cincinnati. I have a couple of these. This particular one, I'm going to take it to trade also at the National. So if anybody's interested in this card right here, I will be moving it. I have a PSA 4 of this card also. So this talks about, you know, Armando Marsans, the first native-born Cuban to break into the major leagues. Armando Marsans, Rafael Almeida, who joined Cincinnati in mid-season 1911. Marsans was a son of a wealthy resident of Havana and comes from an old Spanish family. He learned to play the game in Cuba and came to the United States in 1910 as a member of the New Britain team. So right after the 1909, when they went to play, Cincinnati went to play there, they recruited him and they brought him to the minor leagues with the New Britain team in Connecticut. Following season, he was sold to Cincinnati team and has since played outfield positions for the Reds. He's a splendid fielder and had a great throwing arm. In 1911, Marsans batting .261 and fielding .968. So the story of Marsans is that, you know, since he came from Cuba, and it was more of a freer country as far as, in Cuba you can go play for whatever baseball team you wanted to play with, where they couldn't do that in the United States. So Marsans wasn't happy about that. But he did play for the Reds for a few years. And here's his Fatima card. And this is the 1913. So that was, so I'm going in order, his, you know, 1909, 1912, and this is in 1913. This is the team, the Cincinnati team. And it has both Armando Marsans and Rafael Almeida, both of the guys that played in the Cincinnati, with the Cincinnati team. And you could see Marsans is right here where they're holding his hands on his shoulder. That is Armando Marsans. And his teammate, the other Cuban player, is Rafael Almeida. There's his Almeida is right there. So that's Rafael Almeida, which was a good player, but not as good as Marsans. And there's Armando Marsans. And that is the 1913 Fatima of the Cincinnati Reds team, with the two Cuban players that came on because they were, you know, they were light skinned, not as white. You can see, not as white, and I'll show you some other pictures, but they were considered white. And this is the Fatima card in the back of it. And it's a Turkish blend cigarette. And this came in a box, in like a big tin box of cigarettes. It had a lot of cigarettes in there. And you can see here, one of 40, or you could send the coupons in to get these also, but they'll send you a large copy of this, a large picture of this, like a cabinet card of these if you send in that. But basically that's the Fatima card that shows both Almeida and Armando Marsans, 1913. So my last pickup that I showed last time for my Marsans collection was the 1915 Cracker Jack Armando Marsans card that I had picked up also a few months ago. And this is from the Cracker Jack. And again, this is 1915. But the difference here is he's playing for the Federals. Now, what happened to him that he had to go play for the Federals? Well, he was the first player that challenged the reserve clause, that challenged the teams, the team owners. He wanted to switch teams. He didn't want to play for the Reds anymore. He wanted to play for some other teams. And Marsans later went on to play for the Browns and ended up his career playing with the Yankees. So what happened with Marsans is he sued. He was, you know, many people think that Lou Brock was the first guy to sue and be banned from baseball, but it wasn't. It was Armando Marsans. He sued. It's a famous case. I don't remember it, but it came out in the Sporting Life. There was an article in 1914, September 1914, that talks about Marsans against baseball. So Marsans was kicked off. He was kicked off of the Reds team, and he went with the other league, the Federal League, which was the competition for the National League and American League, because he was banned from baseball. So for a couple of years, he was banned from playing in baseball, but he won the lawsuit. And since he won the lawsuit, he was allowed to come back to baseball and come back to play. And that is one of the main lawsuits that players were able to now switch teams. You know, it wasn't easy, but they were able to finally do that. And it was because of Armando Marsans and the famous lawsuit that took place in 1914, 1915 against Major League Baseball. Again, Marsans played for the love of the game. He came from a rich family, so he didn't need the money. And this is the back of his 1915 card. So it says Marsans, outfielder of the St. Louis Federals, was born in Havana in 1888. He played several years with the Almendar's team in Havana, the strongest club on the island, and developed so rapidly that in 1908 he signed with the New Britain club of the Cincinnati League. After 3 years of development with New Britain, he was purchased by Cincinnati in 1911 and signed with the Federals in 1914. So, what card did I pick up to round off my Armando Marsans collection? I picked up a very rare card of Armando Marsans. There are only 5, so it's 1 of 5. There's only 5 on the PSA Pop report of this particular card, and there's only 1 graded higher. So I spent some of my budget from the National, but I am so happy, and I'm going to slow roll this card. It's the 1916 Sporting News M101.5 Armando Marsans in a PSA, in an SGC 7. And this is the set that has the Babe Ruth rookie card in it, 1916. And there is Armando Marsans. Beautiful card and a beautiful picture in the Cincinnati Reds uniform. Doing a vintage sanctuary slow rolling. Check it out, Armando Marsans, right fielder for the Cincinnati Reds. Card number 111 of the M101, 1915-16. And this card comes with various backs. This has the Sporting News, which was really the original way it was distributed, and it's a blank back. Beautiful, beautiful SGC 7. Second highest one. There is 1/8 in the PSA registry. And I looked at it to see what it looks like, and this one looks better. The other one's a little better centered because it's top to bottom, but it has some, it doesn't have that black, as it has some print marks, the 8 on the black border in the back, where this is just a beautiful card. So this is adding to my collection of Armando Marsans. Technically one of the first guys that kind of broke the color barriers, even though he wasn't completely black. You could see that he wasn't completely white. Got his curly hair and what they call mulatto. And this is the Armando Marsans. Very, very rare, very, very tough card from the 1916 Sporting News. It's the M101-5. And these cards are a little bit bigger than the standard tobacco cards. And I'll show you. And the good thing about getting cards from pre-war, all of these are different sizes, which is kind of cool. So check these out. This is my Armando Marsans run. So you have the big one here, which is a big, big card, you know, the big Fatima card. You have the little one here, which is a little small card. Now this is the size of the T206s, so you could kind of tell the size here. This is just the same size as T206. This is the Cabañas, 1909 Cabañas, right? Now, check out the M101. You can see how much bigger it is than the other 2 tobacco cards. Because this one really is not a tobacco card. It was distributed with the Sporting News magazine, and it was also would be distributed with different types of brands. You know, and some of them have different backs, where there would be the Herpelsch, like I don't remember these names of them, some bakery ones and some other different variations. But the front is the same on each one of these, and they're all M101s. It's just different backs. So you see the different sizes of these, which is cool with pre-war vintage, because this one here, I mean, it's as tall as the You see, as the Cracker Jack. Really the same, almost the same size as the Cracker Jack. But it's half the size this way. See, so it's 3/4 this way. So you can see it compared to the Cracker Jack card, compared to all the other ones. Kind of different sizes, different cards, but all beautiful pre-war cards from 1908 all the way to 1916. And it kind of shows you a little bit of the career of Armando Marsans, one of the first, really the first Cuban baseball star to play in the majors. So just want to give you guys a good look at these and kind of give you a quick history lesson about Cuba and of the players that played in the United States, and show you my Jose Marti Susini, considered the George Washington of Cuba. Jose Marti, the fighter freedom fighter. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. Really, really appreciate you guys watching and liking, subscribing, just enjoying. I just enjoy sharing some of my collection with you guys, and I'm hoping you guys enjoy looking at it with me. So thanks again, guys. Have an awesome, awesome day. Have an awesome rest of this weekend, and I'll catch you on the next one. And this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Have an awesome day, guys.